Yes. Am I a co-host?
Oh, I need to make you a co-host. Good morning. We're just kind of waiting. People are still trickling in.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Okay, I'm trying to make you co-host here. There we go.
Oh, there. I can see everyone.
People are still popping in. So, okay, I'll get started. I'll just introduce myself. My name is Chrissy Lawrence, and I am a TOSA in the district. I'm the early learning TOSA. I'm also the elementary health TOSA and Title 1A TOSA. And I am joined by my colleague, Mallory. Mallory, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Mallory Austin. I am also an early learning coach in TOSA. I primarily work with the pre-K locations and support K1 as needed.
Great. Okay, we will just get started. I think I pushed record, so I think we're ready to go. We're just going to do kind of a brief overview of playful inquiry, since that has kind of been the focus the last 4 years in our early learning classrooms, in our kindergarten, our pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade. We're really shifting to a more playful inquiry approach. And so we're going to kind of cover the basics of that for you, and hopefully you can get some tips and tricks when you're in the classroom substituting. And we're really happy to have you here. It's always fun doing professional development with substitutes. So here we go. This is what we're going to cover in the next hour. We're just going to do kind of a review of the workshop model, inquiry-based learning, playful inquiry, we'll put it together, and the brain research behind it, and habits of mind. And I'm going to get us started, and Mallory's going to finish. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, but we'll have time right at the end for questions as well. Just to start with, in the chat, if you can put either a word or a phrase, what comes to mind when you think of the word play? Just go ahead and write it in the chat. So I'm seeing fun, joy, games, laughter, having fun, imagination. Great. Okay, so next I want in the chat, I want you to write a word or phrase that comes to mind when you think of the word inquiry. I see curious. I see question, thinking, wonder. Wonderful. That's great words. Okay. Now I want you to add a word or phrase in the chat when you think of the word workshop. Working, building, collaborating, experiencing together, activity. Wonderful, great. So next thing, I want you to put all of those together. So think about the words that were generated from play, from inquiry, and workshop. What does that mean to you? Maybe a brief phrase or definition for playful inquiry workshop, just putting those pieces together. I love this. Fun thinking experience, curiosity driven, make learning fun, hands-on activity that is fun. Absolutely. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what that looks like in the classroom, what playful inquiry workshop looks like in the classroom. So we're going to just kind of break things down. I'm going to talk just real briefly about the workshop model. The workshop model is something we adopted years ago. It is a structure that's used in classrooms to ensure that student thinking, work, and reflection is the priority. It is a student-centered model of instruction. It gives the students agency in pursuing inquiry. When you add the inquiry piece in, there's collaborative experiences and there's independent experiences. And oftentimes the workshop, it's the components of the workshop. It establishes a routine in the classroom that is familiar and comfortable to the students. And the components usually have something in the beginning. It could be a mini lesson, but if it's inquiry based, it could be a provocation or a question. And then the big chunk of the time during the workshop is work time. It could be research, it could be independent work, it could be collaborative work, it could be investigating something. And then there's always a closing to the workshop, which looks like, could be a reflection of the work that happened. It could be a share out. So it is a model where there is work happening in the classroom, and it is flexible. It's a flexible framework as long as it's student-centered. So I'm going to show you a kind of a picture of what this looks like in the classroom. We have like a pie chart here, and we actually have adopted the workshop model in all of the content areas for the most part. And so you can see across the board in language arts, math, science, social science, and there is now a playful inquiry workshop in most of the kindergarten and first grade classrooms where they have that little chunk in the beginning where there's a mini lesson. And that mini lesson isn't always direct instruction. Like I said, it could be just posing a question. And then there is the research. And then there is, or the research, or it could be small group instruction with kids. It could be independent reading time. It's the time of the work of the children. And then there's a share in the end of at the end of that, that instructional time. And so that is the model that we have adopted in the classroom. Now we're going to talk just real briefly about inquiry-based learning. This isn't new. A lot of schools have done this in the past. They were, what's the word, Mallory? What were the schools that adopted? PYP schools. Just lost me. So that is inquiry. And there were many schools that have been doing that for years. And so we're trying to grow inquiry in the district. It stems from the constructivist theory. It actively involves students in their own learning. So what it is students construct their own understanding and knowledge of the world through experience and then reflect on those experiences. And they're learning the skills to synthesize, interpret, and evaluate, which are really, really high level thinking skills. And that's what we want our kids to do. We want them to be critical thinkers. And inquiry is all about critical thinking. There are different entry points into inquiry. So it could be teacher directed. It could be if a student is, let's say your students are out on the playground. Let's say you're subbing for a day. A student is out on the playground and they notice the leaves and all the different colors in the leaves, and it makes them curious. Well, a teacher may come back into the classroom after recess and they may pose a question to the class. So-and-so was really interested in the color of the leaves. Let's do some investigating colors. What do you think when we mix colors? You could put out paints, you could put out different color cellophane and layer them. Some different activities that are sparked from student interest, but directed by the teacher. So there could be also inquiries that are completely directed by the teacher. There could be shared inquiry experiences like what I just explained, or personal inquiries dependent on student interest. You know, student can be just investigating what they are interested in. And you probably know this even as an adult. So, because I think adults are the same way. When children have the opportunities to determine and pursue their own interests as a learner, there is a long list of things that come into play that are positive. They're motivated. They're more likely to stay on task and focused. They're less reliant on their teacher or peers. They share their skills and knowledge in their particular areas of expertise. Every child has the opportunity to be an expert because they're doing their own research and investigation. They have opportunities to be in their element. They gain confidence and self-belief. They have opportunities to work and learn alone. They can make better connections between their interests in general classroom, and they can teach and inspire others. And this comes from the Passion Project, which was created, I believe, in 2020 from two children. They created this website, and so students can go on and take courses and just experience things that they're interested in. And I think this quote is really at the heart of it. It says, "The heart of human excellence often begins to beat when you discover or pursue a pursuit that absorbs you, frees you, challenges you, or gives you a sense of meaning, joy, or passion." Absolutely believe that. So when we put play and inquiry and workshop together, you have what's called the Playful Inquiry Workshop. And we incorporated Playful Inquiry Workshop in KN1, and not all, just so you know, not all classrooms have adopted this, but it's as kind of a soft start to the day. So at the beginning of the day, it's a block of time that's designated for what's called Playful Inquiry Workshop. The kids get to explore materials, they get to investigate, research. They're invited to look at some different questions. Teachers may put out invitations, like inviting them to research a certain topic or ask a question. And it's just a time for wonder and exploration while using materials as thinking tools. There are a lot of different materials that teachers put out. And Mallory's going to talk a little bit more about that. And the materials can be anything from like acorns or sticks, things from the natural world, little rocks, stones, maybe paints, magnifying glass. There could be a light table, just a lot of different materials that can be used as tools for inquiry. And so that is the Playful Inquiry Workshop. And we've started it this way so teachers can get used to this kind.
Make a left at the top at 04.
I think someone, if
Sorry, Chrissy, I just muted you.
Mallory muted everybody. Thanks, Mallory. Oh. So that's what's happening in a lot of the classrooms. So if you are subbing in pre-K, K, or 1, you may see this at the beginning of the day. And this is kind of a start to playful inquiry. And we're trying to grow inquiry and incorporate play throughout the content areas. And that is the work of the early learning team, is to align this K through 5. This is just kind of the flow of the workshop. It can start with an invitation or a provocation, and what that looks like. That could be, posing a problem, just putting out materials to explore, offering sensory experiences, asking a question. And then there is an independent inquiry time. It's that workshop time where students get to collaborate and play or independently investigate or research or experience, play with the materials. And at the end, you come together as a group and you share your experiences at the end of that workshop time. You could make connections to learning targets. Now, one question that we ask is it academic in nature? That Play for Inquiry workshop time in the morning is actually just play and exploration, but it can be connected into the content areas. If you see a student that is really, really interested in kind of zoned in on maybe magnetiles and shapes and numbers, you can, when you get to math time, you can see you can find out not only what a child is interested in, but what their strength is. And you can direct that during content time. A lot of kids start bubbling up as scientists during this time, and you can connect that into the science workshop. A lot of kids create stories. It's about stories. It's about making stories as they play and as they work, and you can move that into your writing or make a connection to a book. So there is a lot of ways to connect to the content areas, but this is also time just for them to pursue their own interest and just be curious. The foundational blocks of playful inquiry. It's a strong image of the child or student. We want the child to learn who they are also and determine what their identity is in the classroom. It's the creation of a classroom learning community. That's probably one of the most important things too, is creating that community so kids feel safe to take risks and learn. It's a classroom culture of listening and relationships. There's negotiation happening during that time. They're learning a lot of skills for collaboration and negotiation. There's a lot of opportunity for collaboration, and some kids may choose to work and collaborate together. Some kids may work independently for a while, and that's okay. The classroom environment and the materials in the classroom are really key. You have to have an environment set up for playful inquiry. And valuing uncertainty, really important. Really hard sometimes as a teacher, sometimes as a mom. It's hard to let kids sit in this space of uncertainty, but that's how they learn. And let's move on here. Okay, Mallory, you want to talk about this?
So within our playful inquiry workshop, we know that play is something that moves across cultures and is something that all people do, all animals do. We know that kids are always interested in playing, and that's how they learn. And so within this playful inquiry workshop, we know that it offers culturally and linguistically, it is culturally and linguistically responsive to the opportunities for learning. And so there's 3 aspects of playful inquiry workshop that are super important. And so we know that the first and most important thing are the kids themselves. So they are bringing what they know, they're bringing their lived experiences, they're bringing their language, their family culture, their traditions, their interests, their family interests, they're bringing that into the classroom. And that is what drives this time of day. This is what drives playful inquiry, is what the kids are most interested in, because then they can dive deeper into those interests. And then the second part is the teacher. So the teacher in a playful inquiry model or philosophy, we start to move from the teacher being the holder of all knowledge and moving into the teacher being a co-researcher with children and following the interests of children and seeing how they can extend and deepen that understanding and interest. And that happens by observing and noticing and wondering with children. So then the third part that is important is the third teacher, which are the materials and the environment. And so teachers, by observing children, make decisions on what to offer during that playful inquiry workshop, and offer materials, investigations, provocations, invitations for children to then share their learning, their interests, and their knowledge, using materials as an avenue and an access point to share their thoughts and ideas. And so when we are next slide. I clicked my slide, that didn't work.
You want the next slide?
Yes, thank you. So open-ended materials are what become the thinking tools for children in the classroom. And the experiences are structured so that students have time with these materials and that provide a variety of access points. Open-ended materials allow for all different types of experiences, and that experience won't be the same for every child because they're coming with their own background, their own culture, their own experiences. And the materials allow for them to share their ideas, their thoughts, and their wonderings. And then while the children are playing and exploring, teachers are playing alongside them and wondering and asking questions and investigating to deepen the story that the child might be telling or the interest that might be coming up. And instead of quizzing a kid, what color is that? How many do you have? They're asking questions that ask the child to explain more and dive deeper into that interest. So a child might say, look, this is red, or look, this is, the animals are playing together. Well, how do we know that they're playing together? What can you do to show us that they're playing together? Excuse me. And the hope is that the types of questions that you are asking offer both the student and the teacher opportunities to grow in their curiosity and extend an interest, instead of the closed-ended materials and the closed-ended questions that kind of stop the curiosity in its tracks. And Chrissy, you're up next.
Great. And you can even see from this picture, we probably should have added more pictures, is the materials can be anything. They really are. We were in our office yesterday and one of the coaches asked for cardboard, and we brought in tubes and cardboard and paper and just all sorts of things that we just found lying around the house and brought that in. And you just put that out for kids with, you know, tape and maybe some wire and just see what they can build. It's pretty brilliant. You don't need to spend a lot of money and have a lot of fancy materials for there to be playful inquiry. So it's pretty exciting and fun to see. Really important question. Why is playful inquiry workshop important? Or just playful inquiry in general? It doesn't have to be just that workshop time. Because the brain. So after birth, experience builds the complex pathways of the human brain. And playful inquiry is all about experience. The child isn't sitting and listening to information, they're actually experiencing the world. And it's really important to brain development. So what are these experiences that build better brains? Playful learning, playful inquiry, inquiry approaches, and inquiry-based preschool. Anything that's inquiry-based, that's what builds a more complete brain, better brain, functioning brain. And you can see some pictures of kids engaging in playful inquiry workshop in the classroom. So how do we support the building of better brains? And how do we engage the mind to influence brain architecture? So there is something called relaxed alertness. We want students to be in relaxed alertness. That is a way that they can function best and learn best. The focus is on relationships in a caring community. When there's a well-organized and beautiful environment that puts children in relaxed alertness, when there's a schedule that minimizes transition, allow them to sit and work for long, uninterrupted periods of time. That doesn't mean sit and listen for long, uninterrupted periods of time, but actually working and engaging. It takes about 20 minutes to actually get into it for students. Processes and protocols and routines that helps put children's brains into relaxed alertness and helps keep them safe so they're able to take risks when learning, and multi-layered experiences and environments that capture the interests of a diverse group of children. We want to make sure that we offer a variety of materials, experiences, because we have so many different students in the classroom. We want to open the door to all of them. We want to meet the needs of all of them. So when children are relaxed and alert, they're able to build skills and strategies to tackle problems and challenges. That's really what we want. So this kind of visual right here is the learning pit. So if you look on the left-hand side of the learning pit, there is kind of a mindset, an academic mindset that regulates emotions and manages negative self-talk. So we need to go into that learning pit really calm and ready, and playful inquiry puts our brains in that relaxed alertness so they can engage in that productive struggle when they get to that point where they're frustrated, they feel stuck, they can work through it. And us as teachers aren't rescuing them. And it's really fascinating to watch in the classroom during playful inquiry time, where you see groups of students together working to solve a problem. And even teachers, we were doing an experience in an elementary school with teachers, and we were having them play with materials. And there was a water table set up and some materials, and they were trying to pour water into this tube and see what it did to the materials in the trough. And it wasn't doing what they wanted it to do. And it got frustrating, and water was kind of spilling over the edge, but you could see them work together to come up with a solution. And that's exactly what students do. But that doesn't happen if they aren't in that relaxed alert phase. And information processing lifts us up out of that pit, because they're making meaning of the new learning. They're trying different things, they're investigating, they're collaborating. And that's kind of bringing them out of that learning pit. Sometimes you see students that get really frustrated and just stop and refuse to move forward. And if they are able to approach something from an inquiry standpoint, you really do quite often remove those barriers. Playful inquiry and learning support healthy child development and educational achievement. Absolutely. It supports responsive relationships, reduces stress. You can see that stress is a real issue among our students right now, and it strengthens their core skills. Mallory is going to dive into the habits of mind, and she's going to make the connection between what the teacher is looking for when they're when children are engaging in the playful inquiry workshop, and just throughout the day in general. So you know what I'm going to do, Mallory? I'm going to stop sharing so that you can share, or do you want me to continue sharing?
You can continue sharing.
Okay.
Yeah. So the habits of mind, there are 16 core habits of mind. The Beaverton School District has adopted 5 for our pre-K programs, and those are our standards for our pre-K classrooms, and kind of drive the learning in the classroom. For K1, and I'll dive deeper into what those are specifically, but just some background information. For K1, these are currently not required for teachers to teach or notice or anything like that, but they are habits and practices that teachers observe over the course of the year, and encourage opportunities or offer opportunities for students to grow those. And BSD is currently revising the report card to incorporate these as student growth goals, because they are behaviors and habits that lead to future success. So Chrissy, can you go to the next slide? So a habit of mind, the habits of mind are what successful people do when they are confronted with problems where the resolution is not immediately apparent. So when we as adults come up with an issue, or come up with or are confronted with a problem, it's what we kind of do naturally. We start to focus on the problem. We might ask someone else for help. We might collaborate with someone else. We come up with different strategies that might tackle that problem. And these are things that children are naturally growing and learning over a long period of time. And even as adults, some of us are strengthening these skills and habits as we are faced with challenge. And so in the classroom, we are offering up experiences that allow children to grow these over time. Chrissy, can you go to the next slide? Go back one. So the 5 that we have adopted in Beaverton are focusing attention, communicating ideas and emotions, making connections, collaborating, and thinking strategically. So in our classrooms, we're encouraging teachers to notice these. When are kids really diving into a topic or into a concept and focusing their attention? And when are they communicating clearly with with their friends, with their peers, with their teachers? How are they making connections between things that they've experienced, things that their other classmates are experiencing, or maybe a connection between a book character? How are they making those connections? How are they collaborating? Some of that is that social emotional learning that they're still learning. And a lot of that comes up when they are collaborating during a playful inquiry workshop. And then thinking strategically. So what happens when they become frustrated, like Chrissy was saying? How do they tackle that challenge? What are their options? How are they maybe using the materials in a different way to think strategically about an issue? You can go to the next slide. So in order for teachers to recognize the habits of mind in the classroom, they must become noticers. So in order to do that, you have to start by noticing what the children notice. What are they interested in? What are they realizing? What aha is happening for them? And then you notice the stuff that children are doing and help them store it. So you're putting name to what children are doing, what they're building, what they're recognizing. And there's a quote by Peter Johnson that I'll mention later that children go around the world doing stuff, and they don't know that it's actual stuff until you name it for them. And so it becomes the adult's role to notice alongside kiddos so that they are really, really storing that skill as something they can go back to. And then when you're noticing children help, or that sentence does not make sense, but you are scaffolding in the classroom. So you're providing scaffolds and helping kids notice others and notice what they are doing themselves. And you're noticing when children are solving problems and bringing that to the whole group. Chrissy and Mallory really had a tough time today in the block area. Their towers kept falling down, but they persisted and they thought of different strategies. So noticing when kids are using problem solving skills. And then also that part of using different strategies. Chrissy tried to stack the blocks and make it so they didn't fall over by creating an extra layer of blocks, or just helping kids really notice those strategies.
Mallory, there's a good question in the chat too when you're done with this slide.
My dad.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
How has COVID affected the collaboration aspect of inquiry? When I subbed in K1, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to let them work play head-to-head in as small children do, or if I'm supposed to help them stay 3 feet apart. Yeah, we're still battling that a little bit across the district, and it is different school to school right now, with COVID still kind of lingering in schools, and so it completely depends on the classroom and what COVID protocols are still in place, depending on the building. So in our pre-Ks, kids are back to normal. They are playing side by side, in each other's faces. That never really stopped because they're 4, but so they're a little bit closer in space. For our K1s, yeah, it totally depends on the building and kind of what that should look like. And Chrissy put in the chat, maybe ask the teacher next door kind of what that looks like. Most teachers have kind of problem solved what that looks like in the classroom, and the kids know. And maybe it's just a reminder, hey bud, remember we gotta stay in our, arm's length away, or whatever it is. Maybe they have a term that they use as like a little quick reminder. But it has been it's been a bit of barrier this year, and hasn't been ideal for when we're trying to implement play, because part of play is being close to each other and really getting, being those brain buddies where they get together and they start to, whisper back and forth. Oh, well, let's try this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And it becomes hard when there's the COVID. Thanks for those questions. Chrissy, can you go to the next? Yeah, perfect. So just a little vignette into one of the classrooms. This cute little girl is in one of our pre-K classrooms, and during a playful inquiry workshop experience, she was at the sensory table and she's playing with kinetic sand. And she, as you can see in the picture, there's 2 little red half spheres, And she noticed that if she filled the half spheres together and packed the sand in there and then put them together and took off the red pieces, she could make a sphere. And the teacher said, wow, look at your strategy. You put 2 half spheres together to make a whole. And during the reflection circle, which happens after that play explore time, the teacher offered time for her to explain her strategy. So the teacher put pictures up and she was able to explain how she created the sphere. The next day, the little girl comes back to the sensory table and she packs the sand into the half spheres and makes her whole sphere. And she says, teacher, look, I'm using my strategy. So, and strategy that's a big word for a 4-year-old or even a 5-year-old. And so by naming what kids are doing and giving them that language, they're going to use it and they're going to understand it. And they're going to start to pass on that language to their friends and start having very intelligent conversations and about the strategies that they're using. And so, as I said before, the adults in the room, it becomes our responsibility to name the skills, traits, and habits that children are displaying. And then they can start naming those traits, habits, and skills for other kids. Christy, can you go to the, yep, perfect. So as part of this learning of the habits of mind in the classroom, we want to document. And the picture that I showed earlier, that's a form of documentation. It's telling a story through picture. Can you go to the next slide? And the reason why we document through pictures or story recordings or videos in the classroom is because the documentation is what guides what happens next. We're taking what we notice in the children's play or explorations, and it's guiding our planning. So it might help us plan for future experiences, provocations, maybe read alouds or investigations. It also provides opportunities to communicate with parents. I was a pre-K teacher a couple years ago in one of our classrooms, and being able to share the learning through picture and story and the documenting that was happening throughout the day was so rich that it really was easy to communicate with parents because I was able to show them and tell them exactly what was happening in the classroom through the stories that I was witnessing with the kids. Documentation also allows for us to share with the larger community. So that might be just our school community, that might be with community members outside of the classroom. And then documentation also allows us to just capture those instances of brilliance. And that's what we know, that children are brilliant, and we want to be able to document that and share that with more than just ourselves and the kids in our classroom. And so by documenting through stories and pictures, we're able to do that. Christy, can you go to the next slide? So as we are documenting habits of mind, we know that there is growth in those habits of mind. And in the early years, we might see that a child only focuses their attention or only shows strategy when they're with that one material they love the most. So for example, it might be dinosaurs. So let's say that Lucy, and I use Lucy because that's my niece's name and she loves dinosaurs, but only goes to places with dinosaurs, and she only sits and focuses for long extended periods of time if dinosaurs are there. And she's probably playing alone. She might not be using other materials, or that preferred item or action might include a pier that they just love. They only go to the block area because her friend Lucella is there. She's only going to blocks because that friend is there, and she's going to follow that friend around. And so what we're trying to do is grow those habits of mind over time. So in the early years, like I said, it might be preferred, something preferred is attached to that skill. Over time, we see that the skill grows, and they might go to the sand table if there's dinosaurs there. But if there's fish, not going. So they might try different locations and different things if the preferred material or preferred friend is there. And then as they grow that habit of mind, they start to do more things, and they might show the skill in different ways, because they're starting to kind of make that connection of like, you know, I can use this strategy in a different setting. And so we're going to see them use the strategy more and more and more and more in different contexts, with different materials, with different friends, with different people. Chrissy, can you go to the next one? So oh, never mind. That slide is gone. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Chrissy, can you go to the next one? We'll go back to that one. So with this, so like I was saying, there was an example with Lucy and the dinosaurs. So in the early years, there might be solitary play. They might be roaming around with a dinosaur in hand, not really interacting with other friends, kind of touching things and moving. We call this the butterfly stage, where they're kind of like, they flit around the classroom and learn, and are just noticing things. And then gradually, as they are growing their habits of mind, a teacher might intentionally try and grab their interest into a different space by incorporating something that they love. And then that's when you might see that focused attention grow, because the teacher has intentionally offered a space with their interest. And then as the child grows that habit of mind, they might join in on more things. So for this example, the child joins the morning meeting, or for parts of it, when the dinos are at the circle. So they're starting to pull in their interest into those different areas. And we'll see that growth over time. Christy, can you go back one slide? Perfect. So when we are looking at habits of mind and trying to see that growth, we want to consider a few things. So we want to consider how much adult support is necessary for that habit of mind to be shown. So does a child sit and paint for an extended period of time on their own? Or do they need adult support to kind of be like, oh, why don't you try a different color? Why don't you add a detail? So how much adult support is needed for them to show the habit? How do they use different strategies only when adult is there? Do they collaborate only when an adult is there? And then we also need to consider the connection to a child's preferred context. So are they only showing that habit of mind when their favorite thing, favorite person, favorite activity is present? And then also that connection to the peer relationship. So for example, do they only sit and play for an extended period of time if Lucy is there that day? What if Lucy's gone? Do they not go? Do they kind of just go back to their butterfly phase where they're just kind of like roaming around? And then we want to consider the frequency. Are they able to show that habit of mind every day, most days, some days, only when they come in a relaxed, alert state, only after they have lunch, only after they have recess? Like, when are they showing that they can demonstrate that habit of mind? And then the biggest one is the awareness. Are they able to notice the habit in themselves? And are they able to notice the habit in others? And this is probably the hardest one, because they're so like self-focused most of the time. And so when they really have mastered or have a deep understanding of what that habit is when they're able to notice across different contexts and with different people. Can you go to the last slide, Christy? Next one. Next one. So the biggest thing about playful inquiry is that as the adult, we must be able to catch the ball that children throw at us and toss it back to them in ways that make the children want to continue the game with us, perhaps reinventing the game as we go along. That's a quote by Luis Malanguzzi, from the founder of the Reggio Emilia schools, which are what we're inspired by. And so kids toss us these like balls or ideas or concepts or things to consider all the time. And what we do with those in the classroom, in a playful inquiry classroom, determines whether that interest or that curiosity continues. And so we have to consider when a kid says, hey, did you notice? Hey, I'm wondering. We have to decide what to do with that. We can drop the ball, push it aside and do nothing with it, or we can catch it and run with it and lob them back something else that might make them think deeper about what they're trying to explore. And that's what playful inquiry does. It creates this space where kids are able to consider their curiosities and wonders and dive deeper into them and bring other people along into that curiosity. So Christy, next slide.
So does anyone have any questions, any thoughts or comments? I know we're done a little bit early, but maybe we challenge you when you're subbing in a classroom to think about those habits of mind. What I'm going to do is, I know I'm sharing my screen, but what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share the deck in the chat so you have access to it. But I think what I'll do, let's see here. I think I'm going to share it to, I don't know if you can all get it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share it to Lisa Burnett, and she will be able to share it out to all of you. So any questions or thoughts? Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate all that you do. We need our subs. It's been a couple years, and we just hope that we can get back to normal soon. And thank you for loving on our students. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Mallory.
Thank you.
And we'll make sure that everybody gets their PDUs.
Great.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Great reminders and thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.